Hello and welcome to Four Burners. My name is Joshua and joining me today, very excited, AFL footballer, my favourite player in the league. Can you please welcome from the Melbourne Demons, it's Ben Brown, everyone. Yay. Hey, Ben.
Hello, Josh.
How you doing?
Going really well, thank you.
Thanks for doing this. It's been a bit of a... we were going to do it last week.
We were.
And then someone with two kids, myself, I understand when people in the family get sick, everyone's sick. And how is everyone now?
Everyone's well.
That's good.
Everyone's well. We got through that.
Cool. All right. So we have met before. You probably don't remember meeting me though. This was like back in 2016. So you were still playing with North. I think, was that when the first season without Drew Petrie, Daniel Wells and Brent Harvey?
I reckon
Or was that 2015?
No, that was it was the end of that season.
Okay, it must have been started 2017 then.
Yeah.
Because I came in pre-season and I was hired as a comedian and all the jokes were just about how these guys have all left. And as a fan, I was like, I don't want to do these jokes. I feel really sad. But I got to talk to you. I got to talk to Majak and someone else I can't remember. But yeah, yes. I remember we talked about being from Tassie.
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm from Burnie and you're from Devonport, and they're rival towns.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah, great. So how this works is we talk through your 4 personal burners. There's family, friends, health, career. Do you want to start with anyone in particular?
It probably feels right to start with family.
Okay, great. All right. Family. How many in your family?
So I'm one of 6 boys.
Yep.
I'm the eldest of 6 boys.
Are they all as big as you?
Not quite.
Okay.
Not quite. I'd say probably all above average.
Yep.
So my wife says in, discussing my brothers, like even the smallest of my brothers is actually quite tall.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like James, who's probably the shortest out of us. We always kind of think of him as like, little shorty James.
Yeah.
But yeah, he'd be 6 foot. So it's,
how tall are you? 6'6"?
Yeah, 6'6". Yeah.
It's Michael Jordan's height. Did you know that?
Yes, I did know that actually.
Because everyone who's 6'6" would know
everyone
he's the most famous. Yeah. So you're the oldest in your family.
Yeah.
What's the role in your family then, out of all of the 6 of them?
Well, when I was growing up, it was probably I used to set up a lot of the games and if we were outside playing, I would be the one setting up like the 100-lap bike race around the house.
Great. Or
finding ways to set up games that specifically led to a personal win for me, a personal victory. So yeah, I think I did probably beat up on my little brothers a little bit. What's
the difference in age between you and the youngest?
12 years.
Okay.
So yeah, it's basically 2 a year.
Yeah. So by the time the last one has because you're almost like when they're 6 or 7, you're moving out.
Yeah. Well, that was for my youngest brother Luke. It was. He was 7, 8 years old when I moved out of home. So it was interesting for me in that, moving out of home when I was 20 and making the move to play at Werribee Footy Club in the VFL, because at that stage I wanted to give myself an opportunity to play at the highest level, and I thought, moving out of Tassie was probably the best opportunity for me to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of my other brothers were at home for probably, 7 years after that.
Yeah.
So I did feel like there was a little bbit of a disconnect between myself and my brothers, and I would say that we're all on the introverted side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't like we were messaging each other every day. So not sort of living at home with them.
Yeah.
It did feel like there was a little bit of a disconnect there for a bit.
Are you close now though?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would describe it as we've never been not close.
Yeah.
I think in the way that, as I said, we're all introverted, which means that we've never really clashed on much.
Yeah.
We sort of all like our own space to an extent, and, you had bickering growing up, but I remember again, Hester, my wife, said the first time she went to Tassie to go and meet my family.
Yeah.
and she'd grown up with one sister. So she was like, what am I going to walk into?
Yeah.
I'm going to walk into a war zone.
Yep.
And she said she walked in, it was just like quiet in the house. All the boys like, gave her a hi and then like went back to their rooms. Like it was, and that was kind of what it was like growing up a little bit. Like, heaps of people to play with. Like, once I was done with one brother, there was always another one that would, play cricket with me or whatever. But
as the oldest, did you feel a responsibility to protect the youngest ones?
Yeah, to an extent. I think myself and the second oldest brother, Alex, we were probably closest growing up. And Cameron was third, and he sort of, when I got a bit older and was into sort of, big kids school and, I was doing a lot of study and those kind of things, like he probably took the youngest three under his wing. Yeah. But it did get to the point where, I was going for my license, I was going for my P's, and mum and dad were like, come on, like you got to get this done because we need another person to like shuttle everyone around. Or like we played a lot of sport growing up. Yeah. Particularly me, but all of my other brothers were playing, basketball up and down the coast, the intertown or stuff.
Yeah, I played intertown as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing a lot of that sort of, I'd do the school drop-offs in the morning in our big Tarago. Like
that's how I see, because I've got two kids and like we weren't going to have a third, but then I hear people with like they go for the third and then it's twins, and it's like that changes your whole life because you're like, we need to buy another car, we need to buy a van.
Yeah,
like, yeah.
No, we had the van.
Yeah,
we had a Nissan Nomad. That was our car for there for a few years, and then I think that one carked it. Yeah. And then we had the Tarago after that. It was we just piled everyone in like it was a full house.
How many kids do you have?
Two.
You got two kids, and your partner came from just a family of two.
Yes.
Did you? You don't have to answer this, but was there pressure from your family to have more than just two kids?
No.
Okay.
No, there wasn't. I think it was very much, Hester and I having that discussion. I remember both of us wanted kids, and we wanted kids reasonably young. Yep. And that was probably more me actually than Hess. I grew up around kids, and I love kids and little babies, and I feel really in my element in that space. I think just having grown up around them, that was what I was used to. So Hester and I, when we were sort of planning kids, we were like, we'll definitely have 3 or 4 kids. Yeah. And I remember we had the first kid, and then after a bit, we were probably like, maybe we'll have 2 or 3. Yep. And then we had the second kid, and we were like, 2, it's done. 2. Yep.
We're the same. We're like, these 2 are perfect. We don't need any more. Yeah. So your extended family as well. So your uncle played AFL football, VFL, AFL, and your grandfather was the president of Glenorchy Football Club.
Wasn't president,
okay.
but he played. Hall of Famer, Tasmanian Football Hall of Fame. Yeah. So footy was in the family. Yeah. That was mum's side of the family. Dad's side was very different. Dad grew up in Scottsdale on a farm, and his parents weren't big on sport. Like he's told me a story about like he used to love basketball, but his parents didn't like the idea of him going out and playing sport because it was, he needed to be on the farm. Yeah. So when he wanted to play basketball, they said, well, you can play basketball, you got to fashion your ring for yourself. So he got like an old piece of iron and bent it himself, and then bolted it to the side of a shed. Yeah. And that was how he, made his basketball ring up.
We used to get coat hangers, the wire coat hangers, and just do that for the back of the door, and just try and sticky tape it as we could, just so me and my brothers could dunk. So all right, so your mum's side were into sport. So did your parents ever, and I've only just realised this because my kids are playing sport as well, did they ever complain about driving you guys to weekend sport or trainings?
No.
Isn't that incredible? Because I drive my kids, I coach my kids' basketball teams, but it is such a, my weekends now are just running them around to basketball games. Yeah. And Wednesdays I have to have off so I can coach their teams.
And we've probably got this ahead of us with our own kids, and we're starting to sort of plan in. It's you plan your week and you're like, wow,
Yeah.
there's actually not enough time in the week for all of these things
No.
that Isla wants to do. She's only 5, so
Yeah.
I can only imagine when she's 10 or 12.
I can't. So with 6 kids, 6 boys, did you all play weekend sport?
Yeah, pretty much all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing how they did it. I think even harder for particularly my dad was, I remember when I was on my learners and my dad would like sit there while we drove 80 k's an hour
Yep.
all the way up the coast to go to these basketball games, and dad would be sitting there in the passenger seat. That would have been harder than doing the driving himself, I reckon. But yeah, no, we never a complaint. My parents absolutely did everything they could to give us opportunities. When you talk about the 4 burners theory for my parents,
Yeah.
it was like they've only just retired now, but when we were growing up, I don't think I realised at the time, but the Friends burner just was completely switched off pretty much there.
Yeah.
Like they just went, we're going to give everything to family, even, to the detriment of their health sometimes. It was like everything we can to provide for the kids and give them the opportunities that, to thrive. So, yeah, I see it in a very different light now being a parent myself.
What work did your parents do?
So dad is an industrial chemist, worked in the paper industry. So he basically, he was mixing the chemicals to create different glosses of paper. And
so did he work for like the pulp mill in Burnie? Yep.
Yep. So in Wesleyvale it was at the time. But did some work in Burnie as well. That shut down about 2010, and they moved to Hobart. So I've been in Hobart since.
Oh, okay, yeah, cool. So when you all get together now, what kind of stuff happens?
What kind of stuff happens? We were just all together over Christmas, which was great. Apart from the youngest, Luke's over in Nebraska now playing basketball.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, he's really enjoying that. Although he did send through a little photo of a screenshot of the weather there the other day, and it was I think it was -21 with a wind chill of -40.
Did you watch the NFL game with the Kansas City Chiefs?
I didn't know.
So it was I think it was -20 on the field, and the coach of the Kansas City Chiefs had icicles in his mustache.
That was
that isn't like having played. Look, I'm sure you've played so many games of football in cold conditions. And I remember playing in down in Queenstown on the gravel as a kid and thinking it can't get colder than this. -20 though is you just call it off.
Yeah.
Or build a stadium with a roof.
Yeah.
They've got so much money in that, from being a parent, what have you realised about your own parents? Have you realised anything about your own parents once you became a parent?
Good question. I think what I said before about the amount that they gave to us, probably to their own detriment. But I suppose this comes back to I was thinking about the concept of the 4 burners. When you sent through, would you like to come on this podcast? I was interested, so I did some reading on it. And I think the concept is, you have to switch off 1 to be successful and 2 to be ultra successful. And I think what that comes back to is what you define as success. I think my parents would say that they've had an incredibly successful and, full life.
Yeah.
And that for them probably looks a bit different to how it looks to other people. I'm speaking for them now, but I think, the giving their kids opportunities to thrive and play sport and all these kind of things growing up and to live happy, healthy lives, I think they would define that as successful.
Yeah.
And perhaps the fact that they had to, perhaps not put as much into friendships and, like I said, at times their health, for example, that they would probably define that as success, but I don't think they would necessarily feel like they missed out either.
Yeah. When my eldest was really young, 2 years old, there was a lot of construction on our street, and he used to love going down and seeing all the diggers and all that kind of stuff. And it was just just dirt really, and it was raining. And so he loved playing in the mud. And so I just would go down there and let him play in the mud. And then this old woman who lived in one of the thing came out and she goes, "Oh, you're a good dad." I'm like, "Oh, I'm just letting him play in the mud. And it's not that good." He goes, No. You're there, you're present, you're a good dad. And then I just started talking to her and she said, because she's had like grandkids now, she goes, all you want for your kids, when you're at my age, all you want for your kids is them to be happy in a job they're doing, a couple of friends, and a partner who loves them. If you've done that as a parent, you're a success. And that's really stuck with you. It's like you can have all these like lofty ambitions for your kids but when it comes down, as long as they're happy doing what they're doing, they've got some friends they can like talk to and someone else, a partner that actually loves them, not just a partner, like, then you can go, "Oh yeah, I can say, I've done my role. Like this is what, you've provided everything you can." And then, as long as, anyway, I still always remember that. All right, family, we'll tick that one off. Okay, so health, friends, career, what do you want to talk about next?
It's an interesting one for me in that I think career and health are actually quite intermingled.
Yeah. All right, let's talk career then. Okay, so AFL footballer, was that always the dream?
I always, when I was growing up, would have loved to play elite sport, elite level sport. That was what I always wanted to do. I loved sport of all kinds. I played basketball and football and cricket and tennis and anything I could get my hands on.
So you played basketball. Why don't the commentators always say, "Oh, from a basketball background, like Pendlebury"? Like,
I don't think I was quite to the level of Scott Pendlebury, which is, probably why that doesn't get raised. I didn't think I would ever get to that level. I really loved sport, but I just thought that it would be out of reach. A kid from Devonport growing up.
Well, Brady Rawlings, similar. He was also from Devonport, played at North Melbourne. Was a very good basketball player because we're the same age, so I used to play against Brady a lot, and we also played football against each other. But I thought he was a better basketballer than footballer, and then he went on to have like an amazing career, 200 games, champion. So were you always the best player growing up?
Certainly not. No. I remember there were a couple of kids, sort of playing in grade 8 and grade 9 at Smerenshaw College in Devonport. That was where I played footy up until grade 10. I didn't even go to a football club.
Same school as
the
Brady.
Rawlingses.
Yeah.
I wasn't by any stretch. I think I was always reasonably coordinated and played in the ruck.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't really think that I was ever a chance to step up to play AFL footy. I thought that was a far-fetched dream. It kind of was, one of my teachers at school actually said like, "Oh, you should actually go and try out for the Tassie Mariners," which is the
under 18s.
The under 18s team. You should go and do that, and sort of convinced me to do it. So I went and did that. I was lucky enough to get selected in the squad, and I thought, "Oh, that's great, awesome." And I remember we had a couple of trial games against TAC Cup teams. It was back then, and I remember I just got swung forward like out of the ruck. You play ruck and then you go rest forward.
Yep.
And this first game, I kicked 2 goals in the first 15 minutes, and then I hurt my wrist and had to go off the ground. And then played the next week. And because I had a bit of a sore wrist, they're like, "Oh, we won't play in the ruck because it's going to be a bit hard on your wrist, so we'll play you forward." And I kicked 4 goals.
Yeah.
And so suddenly they're like, "Oh, we might just play you forward."
Yeah.
And I remember I went to the championships where you play against Northern Territory and all the other states. And I kicked a couple of goals in the first game, kicked a couple of goals in the second game. And suddenly like the 17-year-old I was, I'd go on the big footy forums and I start to see my name popping up. It's like, "Oh, draft chance." It went from being like within the space of about 4 weeks, like this is like a pipe dream, never going to happen, to suddenly like that there was like a fire ignited.
Yep.
And I think once that fire started to burn, it was like, I need to make this happen.
Yep. So what's the avenue after that? So you play in the Mariners, and then do you put yourself in the draft, or do you have to be nominated to go on the draft?
So you have to nominate yourself.
Yep.
But it was a roller coaster for me because, like I said, in that 4 weeks, I went from being like pipe dream to oh, I'm a chance here. And then about 2 weeks later, I did my ACL.
Yeah.
I had a teammate, Jimmy Webster, actually. He's now at St Kilda.
Okay.
Good fella. Yeah. I can't even feel like, this. He. So I did my ACL, and then it was almost like I'd come crashing back down. It was like, I've got a chance. Like within a month, all of this happened. Oh, I'm a chance. No, actually, I'm not anymore.
Yeah.
And so, it took me, it was my 4th draft by the time I got picked up by North Melbourne, and I needed to move to play for Werribee in the VFL to sort of earn myself a chance. So, it sort of took time.
So once the ACL happens, it's like, 6-9 months before you can even get on a footy field again, or is it?
Yeah. It was, usually it's 12 plus months now.
Yeah.
I think I really wanted to get back to play in the championships the following year.
Yeah.
So I got back in 8.5 months, which I'm amazed I didn't re-injure myself.
Yeah. And it's all fine now. It hasn't been.
I mean, this is where career and health collide for me, because I've had 8 knee surgeries over my career.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've got to be sort of on constant watch for now.
Yeah.
Like and that's all from that initial injury.
So at 17, so you finishing year 12, then you go into, you did uni, you did, is it philosophy?
I did a journalism degree.
Yeah, okay.
So at that point I was like, well, if I can't play sport, I'll write about it.
Yeah.
Did a journalism degree, moved to Victoria.
Yep.
Because I thought that would be my best chance to have a crack at,
or
one last crack probably at getting an AFL spot. Did that, and was very fortunate in where I landed at North Melbourne at the time. Put my head down and worked hard, but I think we had Brad Scott as a coach then, and he really had belief in my ability where other coaches probably wouldn't. Gave me opportunities, and a lot of things sort of fell into place at the right time. To sort of propel my career forward a little bit.
So when you starting out, did you have like a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, 15-year plan?
Not really. I just wanted to play a game. That was my first thing, was I'm just going to work as hard as I can, and then I just want to play a game of AFL football. Like that would be the most amazing thing ever. And I remember my first year I had a good pre-season, and then I injured my knee at the end of the pre-season, needed surgery. So I came back about halfway through the year, played a few games in the VFL, and had Robbie Tarrant at the time was playing forward for us, and fractured his leg playing a game. So got called into my first game midway through my first season, which was super, super quick really. And my 9th game of AFL footy ever, we played in a final at the MCG against Essendon in front of 82,000 people. So it was like...
What year was that?
It was 2014.
Oh, was that was the comeback? That was the Petrie doing this, right?
Yes, It was Frank the Tank.
I remember that game because I had a gig that night in Sydney, and so I looked at the score on my phone, and we were down by you guys were down by heaps in the second quarter. And I was like, I was going to go to the pub and watch it, and I was like, no, I can't do this. I'm going to do this rule. So I went home. I got a taxi back to the hotel. It was like 20 minutes away from where I was playing, and I was just watching the score tick up on the app, going, oh, this is fantastic. And then I rushed into the hotel, watched the last quarter, and was jumping on my bed with no one there, just going, this is the best game ever. But that was a fantastic game. Hey, when you play in front of 82,000 people, because comedians always look at the audience beforehand, going, oh, this is a big crowd tonight. Do AFL players do that? Do they look around this and go, oh, it's a lot of people here?
I've definitely done that before.
Yeah.
When we were, this is fast forward to 2021, we're playing in the grand final at Optus Stadium in Perth for the Ds. I definitely made sure that I actually, we were doing our warm-ups, and there's kind of the stage is being set up all around us. So it's it's a weird warm-up space, because usually you sort of run around the field, you can go wherever you want. But grand final day, there's entertainment. So running through those, and I just sat down for a minute and just like looked around and took it all in.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I might never ever get to this situation again. And especially now, I'm 31, and which in football terms is starting to get geriatric.
That's It's so
people
weird.
think that's bizarre when I say that, but you're a rare player if you get sort of beyond 32 or 33. But yeah, it's probably really in my mind now, and I did it last year as well. Just took it all in because it is an experience that, once it's gone, you can't just plant yourself in front of 80,000 people again, and who are all like trying to get you to, it's specifically they're watching you. It's really cool.
Yeah. Is there something that you think the public should know about AFL footballers and the career of an AFL footballer that they just don't understand?
Probably, a few things. That probably the number one thing is that we don't just like live under the stadium and get like. Sometimes I think people think that we just get wheeled out on trolleys for the game and then just like placed there and they like switch us on and
like kids with teachers. Kids, the teachers live at the school, surely, yeah.
I think, there is a lot of work that goes into it, and I think when you look at the four burners theory, like it does drain a lot out of other parts of your life, and you can try to mitigate that as much as you can, which I think I try and do, but there are other parts of your life that probably suffer as a result, in a way that like I'm sure. Being like you're in the entertainment industry as well, there are certain elements of being in the entertainment industry that are just going to be different to a normal job in quotation marks.
Well, I find when I first start, it was very hard to like log out of it kind of thing. Like I was always thinking about comedy, always thinking about, how do I write a joke? Or this could this story be this? And it's very hard to switch off. Do AFL players find that as well?
Absolutely, and it's that carries through to your partner as well. So, Hess. I was talking to Hess about this the other day. She said, like, I am always thinking about the food that you are going to eat.
Yeah.
She's like, and sometimes to her detriment as well. She's like, I need to make sure that Ben gets enough food right now. So, like, she will plan bits of her life around. She'll make decisions based on the fact that I need to get a certain amount of food.
Yeah.
Which is just like, you wouldn't normally have to think about that in another job. Like,
no. Yeah. Also, with having a young family as well, it must be like, well, I've got to get a good night's sleep because I've got a game tomorrow. That must be really tough on your partner as well. Is there, what's the trick there? Do you? Yeah,
and I think that's where there's a bit of, you need to come together a bit, I think, and Hester is as supportive as a partner as anyone could have in this space, but I am conscious as well of wanting to make sure that I am supportive of her too, because being a parent and being the number one parent is a tougher job than being a footballer.
Yeah, and
it's more important than being a footballer too, really, when it comes down to it. So I want to make sure that I give her the opportunity to do the best job at her job as well.
Yeah.
And she's a marriage celebrant as well. So she's, she's got her own job to do besides being a primary carer for children. So, there have been times like when either our oldest was a baby, there were times where she was up screaming during the night.
Yeah.
The night before a game. It's like, for me, we needed to share that responsibility. Like, I can't just check out in that scenario. And I don't know, some people might argue that takes away from your ability to do the best job of your career. But I think, like, for me, being like, we sort of do our best to share that load. Yeah. And I'm not saying that I talked to Hester about this the other day actually because I was mentioning the podcast, and I said, I feel like I do a pretty reasonable job of like being able to balance like career and family. Yep. And she goes, "Oh, really? Have you considered, that, you just like, because the thing about footy is it's a really, the schedule's really stuck in place.
Yep.
Like you can't, and it changes constantly. Like, jumping around a bit, but my soon-to-be brother-in-law was asking me about like a date for his bucks.
Yep.
He just wants to like go out for a nice brunch and then like chill at a house. Like it's nothing major. He's like, can you just find like a weekend date that works for that? And I looked ahead at the year and I'm going between AFL games, VFL games, and other commitments. I couldn't find a weekend date.
Yeah.
For basically 6 months that I could lock in and say, yep, I will be able to be there on this Saturday.
Yeah. Which, I mean, you're in your 30s now, but for a guy in their 20s, early 20s, that must be really tough. Like, and we have, there's always reports on, young AFL players getting themselves in trouble for wanting to live a life like a normal 22-year-old. And it must be so hard to go see all your mates doing this and you're dedicated to this in your career, and it's that thing of like one slip up and it can be all over the news, and it must be that kind of discipline to be able to go, no, I just need to concentrate on this and turn off these friends burners or whatever it is, because the goal is, all right, I've dreamt of this as a kid, now I'm here, and it must be so hard.
Yeah, it's just finding ways that work for you. And I think coming back to the relationship between me and Hess, I think communication has always been the key to that. I think if I was making decisions alone that affected her and the whole family without clear communication and discussion, that's when things start to get frayed.
Yeah.
And I was reading another. I was trying to find this actually because I heard the analogy a few years ago, and I can't remember the man who talked about this, but he said that he broke up his life into rubber balls and glass balls. I'm not sure if you've heard this one. And work specifically is a rubber ball. Like if you drop work, it will bounce back up and you can start juggling it again. Whereas if you drop your family or you drop your health, they're glass balls.
Yeah.
So you drop those, they either crack or they shatter.
Yeah.
They're not going to come back. So, and you can break that up further into, each day has a whole heap of glass balls and rubber balls that you're trying to keep in the air.
Yeah.
And which ones are the rubber balls and which one's the glass balls. And I think you've got to keep that. I think of that analogy in my own life too.
Yeah.
Like, what are the rubber balls? What can I drop here that is going to bounce back up and I'll be able to pick up again and start juggling again? And which stuff is the glass? And I think when you're in a relationship and you've got a family, particularly when you've got young kids, because your time gets constrained, you don't have time for these discussions quite as much. You don't have as much, just you time.
Yeah.
The importance of having these discussions and clarity of communication becomes even more important to make sure that you don't inadvertently drop a glass ball.
Yeah. That's great. Love that. All right. Career, we'll put that aside. Health or friends? Which one do you want to do
now? Let's go health.
Health. Okay. So you're saying it's intrinsic with your career. Are you healthy right now?
Yes, I would say I am.
So you said 8 knee surgeries?
Yes.
When was the first one?
That was when I did my ACL and my medial ligament at the same time when I was 17.
Yeah. When you were coming back from that injury, how scary is it to go like 100%? Is that in your head or you just go, I can't think about this?
Well, it was probably helpful that I was 17, 18 years old at the time. So I was in a mindset like I've got to get back and play. I remember the first game back, the first jump for a mark and land. It was like, that was an important moment. I was like, you know, this could go either way. I landed. I was like, am I okay? Yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of away from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's probably changed as I've gone on because, you know, had a few years there where I didn't really hear much out of particularly my knee, and I'll talk about my knee a bit because that one's been the most common ailment over the years for me. Where it didn't really flare up much. I didn't really have any issues from week to week. It was like a management thing, but I never really had to think about it.
Yeah.
In the back stages of my career, it's been more about, and a fascinating part of, you know, sport performance is in sort of pain management and how you get used to playing and training with pain or discomfort.
Yeah.
And that has become more prevalent, I suppose, towards the back end of my career, is going, I'm probably going to have a certain amount of pain or discomfort that I'm having to deal with, and how do I maintain my performance to the best of my ability with that. So towards the back end of my career, it's been more about that.
Yeah. So working at a football club, how much is just planned for you? Like, is like diet stuff, training, weights, is all that all just someone else looks at you, plans it for you?
A bunch of it is, yeah. But I think there's also elements of it that are personal choice. I mean, I'm vegan, and I'm also celiac, so in that sense, like, obviously being celiac's not a choice, but but being vegan is.
Yeah.
And so the football club has been, and both football clubs have been really supportive in working out how to go about that, because that's more of a values thing than a performance thing for me. Yeah, in that sense, it's a choice. But yeah, when it comes to weights and physical body management, it is largely prescribed for you. But again, I think the further on I've gone in my career, the more input I've been able to give in that space.
Yeah.
Particularly when it comes to looking after my body, I think, you know, the physios and high performance staff are listening to me as much as I'm listening to them about what I need. And
also the game's kind of changed a bit in those 10 years as well, in that you were a lot bulkier and then you've like trimmed up. Was that the like coach's decision, or do you go, I think I'd play better if I'm a bit lighter?
It's probably not so, like, that's just something that probably has changed over time. Again, like, not real. Like, I've probably dropped maybe 2 kilos. Across that time. It's not a major change. And for me, part of that is like being celiac as well. And I've had other gut related issues for years. So trying to keep weight on has always been a bit of an issue for me. But that's stuff that's like people just watching football on the weekend wouldn't have any idea about, you know, this particular person's gut issues. Like where it's not like we're all like high functioning people. Like, we are to an extent, but also we've got health issues just like anyone else.
So mental health is also a part of the health chat in this thing. Would you say your mental health is good at the minute? Yep.
I'd say it is.
Have you any been a time where you noticed that your mental health is kind of dipping?
It's a constant sort of up and down. And football, I think, has the ability to make that roller coaster feel a bit more giddy. So you feel a bit more giddy on that football roller coaster. That's been something I've had to work on over the years.
Well, you mentioned earlier when you were 17, you're looking at the big footy forums. Is that because you hear a lot of athletes, like, they're constantly on their phones checking what people are saying, checking what journalists are saying, like that. Is that something that you really have to go, this is not going to be helpful?
I had to cut that off.
Yeah.
And you know, for example, my wife goes through like my Instagram message requests now because you just get, particularly people like that you have lost their multis.
Yeah.
Or, like,
Yeah.
I'll just get message after message saying, you didn't kick a goal, mate.
Yeah.
You've cost me so much money. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I'm just playing sport. Like,
Yeah.
don't put that on me.
I don't gamble, and it is the thing I really dislike with all professional sport now, that just the constant gambling ads and trying to watch anything with my kids, and it's like constant gambling. And even though they have the thing, the little thing at the end of it saying, you'll lose money, blah, blah, blah. The kids are like, because they look at the odds. We won't win because they're odds. I'm like, doesn't matter. Like, just watch. And so my kids aren't into football. They like basketball, and one of them likes NFL. So it's that thing of just trying to get them to. So it's always on KO.
Yep.
And KO, the ads are either gambling ads or UFC ads, and I just can't handle it with my kids are 12 and 9. It's like it's too much for them to watch. So it is that kind of annoying thing that I can't. Like, we sometimes go to the Coburg games, like the Coburg Lions games, and it's fun for them because like they can go for a kick on and half time and stuff like that. But it's trying to get them into sport without them being exposed to so much gambling is really hard.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take that.
That's
all right, cool.
But in terms of mental health, I think my body and my physical health has had an impact on my mental health at times in a football sense. And I actually notice when, and I think I've got better at this over the years, but it would be if my knee was a bit sore, suddenly I was all over the place in my home life. Because, I'm thinking about it constantly, and I'm going, I've got to get this right because I've got to play on the weekend. So if I don't play on the weekend, then I might get dropped. And if I get dropped, then the world's going to end.
Yeah.
And that's not actually the case, but that's the kind of thinking that goes through your head.
And there must be so many people in the team with that as well. Do you guys talk about that kind of stuff?
Probably not so much. With a couple of my closer mates in football circles, yes. It's interesting being in a team of like a squad of 45, 46 guys.
Yeah.
There's things that you talk about and things you don't talk about just in general conversation at the football club, and that's probably one of those things that maybe gets glossed over. Is
it hard that there's 45 people going for 22 spots
and
you're all a team, but also you're like, we always see in pre-season, there's a fight between teammates, and that happens in every club. It's just unfortunate sometimes they get filmed by the news and they like, but it must be that stress of going, well, I want us all to do well because I want us to be a good team, but also I don't want this person taking my spot. So when someone comes to the club, like, so you traded to a club, forward line, was there any kind of animosity between you and the other forward players? You don't have to say names. Or
no. Oh, well, you just know that there's that competition going on.
Yeah.
But I think like there's this sort of undertone of, your mates with your teammates.
Yeah.
And I think that is like some guys live with each other and are really close with a whole bunch of football people. And I'm probably not necessarily so much in that boat. But yeah, there is this like, there's just an understanding that that's part of the game.
Yeah.
And you just support each other as best you can. But often it can be difficult if you're the one taking someone else's spot.
Yeah. All right. We'll stop there with health. Okay. Friends. Okay. Are you friends with people from your childhood still?
Yeah. I've got, I actually caught up with one of them over the Christmas break. He's been living in South Korea for the last 3-4 years. But yeah, we've stayed in touch over that time. And one other guy that I lived with for a bit when I first moved to Victoria. And yeah, we probably, I'm a big nerd and I love board games.
Yep.
So I've got a little board games group and those guys are part of that.
What's your favourite game? Is it Settlers of Catan?
There's so many. There's so many. I do love Settlers of Catan. But I could really go down that rabbit hole with you, but that's a whole nother podcast, I think.
That's all right. That's fine. I'll introduce you to my friend Tommy Dean, who loves board games as well. A good one for the kids if they don't have it is it's called Outfoxed. Have you played that one?
Played it.
It's good. Okay, There you go. How did you make friends in school?
Probably my oldest friend. So my mum and dad we were like church every Sunday people.
Yep.
So mum in particular, Catholic, and she was the RE teacher at school, so couldn't escape.
Yep.
Couldn't escape religion. So yeah, we actually met. I met Kevin there and his family, and there were also, I'll get this right, they had 6 kids as well. So it was we had 6 kids, they had 6 kids.
Great.
Yeah, so we were sort of always family friends with them.
Also, you didn't have to tell me you're Catholic. You're 6 kids. I knew you were Catholic as well.
I think, that might be one of the ways that happened. And one of my other good mates, he sort of moved to the primary school in grade 2. I can't even remember how we sort of hooked in, but yeah, he sort of joined our little group. We had our little group of friends. We were a group of misfits, I would say.
Yep.
We definitely weren't. I wasn't mates with all the sporty people. We were definitely the misfits.
Yep.
Growing up, and I think I definitely felt at times growing up I really wanted to be, with the footy guys or with the more popular kids. And that wasn't me, but I think I look back at that now and go, yeah, that's exactly me as a person. So it fits in perfectly.
Do you set aside time for friends these days?
Yeah, I do. And board gaming is actually a big one for me.
Yeah.
I think it's a great outlet for me because I get to do something I love and also socialize at the same time.
Yeah.
And I'm not so much sit at the pub and have a drink and talk. Again, I would say that I'm on the introverted side of the scale.
Yeah.
So something like that gives me an opportunity to, I suppose, socialize light.
Yeah. It's funny because my friend Luke, he and his brother meet up once a week online to play Call of Duty. And he says, we talk more during that game than we do if we're face to face because you're distracted. And they always say men don't do well eye to eye. That's why stuff like fishing is so good because you get next to each other, or going to the cricket for 5 days and you can sit next to each other and just watch the cricket. But he was saying, if they meet up together, they don't speak as openly as they do if they're playing Call of Duty and they've got their headsets on and just to each other.
Yeah, so, and I reckon that's actually I wish that I had, I suppose, been socialised in a way where I was more comfortable having open conversations. I actually feel like I have great conversations with female friends that I have or that I share with my wife. And it's just a lot more open and I do think that is something that is probably lacking in socialization of young men, is that ability to have those open discussions.
Because I come from comics were so open. Sometimes you need to close it a little bit, but it is that thing. So you have with my friends now, we're all late 30s, early 40s, and it's that thing of we've had these discussions that we're being really nice and open, but still at the end, because we're comics, we try and get a joke in. And it's and sometimes you're saying something and you go, I can tell you're thinking of a joke and you're biting your tongue. So it's very. Have you had any friend breakups where you've had to cut someone out of your life? So I imagine once you get in the AFL, you have a lot of people from your past who you weren't even that close with, kind of trying to message or free tickets, that kind of stuff.
You do get a few ticket requests.
Yeah.
Some that you just politely decline. No, I don't think I have really. I I've been really fortunate, I think, in that the friends that I've got, I really love.
Yeah.
And I love the friendships that I have with different people for different reasons. You know, like, for example, like the Kevin that I spoke about, my oldest friend, we're both not great at communicating. So we can go months and months without messaging each other.
Yeah.
But we caught up with a bunch of his brothers and sisters over Christmas, and they sort of came over. It was a bit like when we grew up with our families, and we like played a game in the evening, and it was just like we were kids again.
Yeah.
Or like it was like nothing, no time had passed.
Yeah.
And I love those kind of friendships. I think they're the best ones.
Yeah.
Where you don't feel like you have to be constantly in touch with each other.
Yeah.
That's actually perfect for me, because I'm not great at being. I get overstimulated and need a break from people sometimes, and like so those kind of friendships are actually perfect for me. And sometimes I feel like I wish I was more social, like, you know, my wife's catching up with friends every week and, you know, messages people all the time on Instagram or, you know, messaging people, and I don't necessarily have that. And sometimes I feel like, I just don't have these connections with people, but I think my connections with people are actually right for the kind of person that I am, which is good.
Look, the old lady on my street, you've said you've got a couple of friends you love, a partner who you love, and you're doing a career. I think you're doing very well. Okay, so that is the end. Okay, so what we do now is we go through which ones you're keeping on and which ones you're going to turn off. So which ones we're keeping on?
Family is number one.
Family, full burner, great.
And I think like more recently, and again, like I talk to my wife about all this stuff, so I feel like I bring her up a lot, but she's sort of essential to all the rest of it working, and I think vice versa. I suppose like I was looking at these two and going like one other burner that kind of I would add in, I suppose, is like the trying to be like a good person and like a worldly person that gives back to the community.
Yep.
So I don't know if there's like a community burner or something that I would add, but like I feel a draw of that a lot.
Yeah.
In that I want to be giving of myself to the world in a greater sense than, you know, just focusing on myself, my family, and I feel that draw a lot.
Yep.
But I think, you know, again, we talked about this over the Christmas period and just went like, what are the things that we actually really want to value? We really, if we look back in 20 years' time and our kids are, you know, 25 and 23, what would we have wanted to give to them? What would we have wanted to say, we did this really well?
Yeah.
And I think family is number one for that. We want to give our kids opportunities. We want to say that we've given of ourselves wholly and fully to that. So that's definitely number one. I think in saying that, I think career is the other one that like I need to put time into, and that can take away from the family portion. That's unavoidable in the career that I'm in, is that, you know, I could be taken away to, you know, we've got 2 games back to back in Adelaide this year, and I could be away for 6 days.
Yeah.
So like I can't prioritize family in that time.
Yeah.
And if Hester has weddings that she has booked in, we together, but she has got to organise, you know, how she's going to work in around the kids.
Do you have like grandparents around?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And well, my parents are in Tassie. Hester's parents are here, and they are fantastic. And Hester's sister and her partner are also great. But yeah, external help is important as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's those kind of situations where career just by default takes priority. So I think, yeah, I definitely want family to be number one, but at times career probably takes that over.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of being an athlete, I think. I would like to, and health is probably like a part of career. I get to like work out as a job.
Yeah.
So in in one sense, I don't have to make time outside of my career for going for a run or going to the gym because that is my job.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that one I think is on by default as well.
Well, yeah, with your career, you have to have your health on. Like,
yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Gone are the days of plug a locket, like, yeah, weighing way too much.
Yeah. And the only one left there is friends. I'd like to think that I keep that on in my own way. And I suppose this is where I don't necessarily subscribe to the 4-burner theory necessarily.
Well, the rubber ball theory, your friends can, especially that friend, you can have 3 years not tweaking and it bounces back up.
Spot on.
Yeah.
And I think that's, for me, that works really well. And I think, I like the idea of thinking in analogies like the 4-burners or the rubber balls. At the end of the day, what it comes back to, I think, is working out what your priorities are.
Yeah.
And also if you're in a relationship with someone or you have a family, knowing that you can't just make those decisions for yourself. It needs to be something that is communicated about. You need to be on the same page. And sometimes you need to make sacrifices to make other things work. So, I think I'm probably switching some up and some down at different points.
Yep.
And
like I said to other guests, this is just for right now. Okay. In 6 months, it might change. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it might be the friends one that's off a little bit more. And I think that's probably a bit of a constant.
Yeah.
For me, I think if I was putting as much time into my friendships as my family and career, the family and career would suffer too much.
Yeah.
So
great. Hey, this has been a great chat. I've really, really loved this. Thank you so much. Do you have anything you want to plug? So any like? Saying you do a lot of stuff in the community. Is there anything there?
Really good question. Look, if anyone's looking for a marriage celebrant, my wife is at Hester Mary Marries.
I saw she had done 100 marriages.
Yes, 100 weddings.
Did you make a banner for her to run through?
I got her some balloons. Maybe I should have made the banner.
Made a banner.
So if anyone's looking for a marriage celebrant, you know where to go. Find her on Instagram.
There you go. Okay, thank you everyone for listening to this. Thank you, Ben, for doing this, and we'll see you next week.
No worries.
Cheers. Thanks.